Hey y'all, it's Alex Vanover back with Divine Design Crafts. It's getting warmer here in Louisville, Kentucky, so I wanted to bring you guys a fun summary tutorial. So I hope you'll craft along with me so we can make this super fun straw sun hat. You can make these for wherever you want to take it this summer, if you're going to the beach, the lake, or on your honeymoon, or even if you're just going to your local pool. You need to take one of these hats with you because they are so cute and pretty easy to make too. I hope you guys are ready to have the cutest hat on the beach. For this project, you're going to need a straw hat. I bought mine from Amazon and I will link it in the description for you. One pro tip for making these hats: if you use hats with a really loose weave, you're not going to be able to adhere your HTV very well because it's not going to have a good surface to stick to. I'm going to put an example of a picture right here. So make sure when you choose a sun hat, it has a nice tight weave with plenty of surface area to put HTV on, like this one. You're going to need some sort of HTV. I am using Caesar's Galaxy Black HTV from 651vinyl.com. Glitter or strip flock are preferable on projects like this so that they don't show the texture of the hat through the HTV, but that's up to you. You'll potentially need a pressing pillow. You can also use a folded kitchen towel if you don't have a pressing pillow, a pair of scissors, a measuring tape, heat-resistant tape, and optional, I'm going to use them in this video, but you definitely don't have to, are a ribbon and some pom-poms to put around the headpiece of the hat. I'll be sure to link all the materials that I used in the description. So before we jump into Design Space, we need to take some measurements of our hat to make sure that we size and space our letters correctly. So flip your hat over upside down, and I want you to use your measuring tape, and you're going to take a measurement from outside brim to outside brim. Write that number down or remember it because you're going to need it when we get into Design Space. The second measurement you need to take is from inside brim to inside brim in the area where your head goes. You're going to want to remember that when we get into Design Space as well, so write that down. Now let's jump into Design Space and get started.
Now that we have the measurements for our hat, we are going to make a mock-up of our hat in Design Space so that we can curve the text and center it appropriately. So first we're going to go into the shapes in the left-hand panel and insert a circle. Then before we go any further, we're going to go up to the corner and click Save and save our project. I'm going to save it as Beach Hat Tutorial. That way, in case Design Space decides to crash on us, hopefully some of our work is saved. Okay. So I'm going to go back to this circle, and first I'm going to change the color to like a light yellow straw color, and I'm actually going to make it the same width as the measurement that I made from outer brim to outer brim. So that's going to be 18.5 inches for me. So that's going to make that circle really big. So I'm going to go down to the zoom part of Design Space and zoom out to 25% so that I can see the whole hat. Then I'm going to insert another shape and insert another circle. And I'm going to make this circle the same size as what I measured from my inner brim to my inner brim. And on my hat, that was 8 inches. So I'm going to click the smaller circle, then I'm going to hold Control and click my outer circle, and that's going to select both shapes. And I'm going to align them first horizontally, and then I'm going to align them vertically to make sure that they are exactly centered around each other. Then I'm going to click Group. And that's going to make sure that shape doesn't move, and this is going to give me a mock-up for my sun hat. So all this space that I have around the outside is considered the brim that I have to put my writing on. Then I'm going to insert some text. So this is going to be the text that you're writing on your hat, and I'm going to use Hello Sunshine, but you can use whatever you want that you planned on writing on your hat. So I'm going to be using a script font for this hat because that's my favorite style. You can use whatever type of font that you want, but something I do want to caution you on is I don't recommend using a super thin script font because that's not going to give very good surface area for the HTV to adhere to your hat. So I'm going to be using Sweetness Script because I really like the thickness of it. I think it's easy to read. And before I go any further, I'm also going to go up to Style. And I'm going to select Bold. So that's a pro tip for you guys that want to use some thinner fonts. If you can bold the font, that's going to help cut it a lot thicker. So I'm going to select my text and I'm going to move it over my hat and start by making it a lot larger because it's going to need to be a lot bigger on my hat. For the letter spacing between these letters, Cricut Design Space always defaults to 1.2, so I'm going to change it to 0.25 and see how close together that gets my letters. And that's a little closer to connected. I know they're not perfectly connected yet, but I will do that manually on my own. Now, before we ungroup our letters, we're going to also let Design Space help us curve our text as much as we can before we have to do it manually. So select Curve, and you're going to move this button to the left to curve your text upward. And like I said, it's not going to be perfect, and that's fine, but at least it'll get us a little bit closer to curving it around the brim of our hat. So now that we see that the letters are spacing out a little bit, maybe we should decrease this a little further to 0.1. That'll help us see a little bit more accurately how we need to curve our text. So now that we have our text where we want it, let's go ahead and ungroup it, and we're going to do the rest of this manually. So it's going to take a couple minutes. You'll have to be patient with this part, but it is important to get it right. So something really important that you need to note when you're making this text is, especially if you're using a word or a phrase that has a low-hanging letter like a G or a Y, you want to make sure that you have enough space between the letter and the outer brim and the letter and the inner brim so that you're not touching too close and you don't have some of those low-hanging letters hanging off the side of your brim. So we're going to try to stay as close to in the center as we can. So I'm gonna move Sunshine over just a little bit because it's a longer word. It's gonna go further around the hat a little bit. And now that I have the S where I want it, I'm gonna try to move all my other letters in toward that S. That way I'm not moving every single letter. I'm sort of using the S as a staple. And don't forget that you can use this little curved arrow in the corner to rotate your letters so that they create a better circular shape. So I'm going to rotate this H a little more. I'm going to get in a little closer by zooming in to 50%. That way I can see that my text lines up a little bit better. So for right now, I like where Sunshine is at. So now I'm going to concentrate over here on hello. So I'm going to start by bringing hello a little bit closer to my S. And now I'm going to bring my other letters in toward that O. And one of the keys to getting your text look like it's aligned better is to try to get the first letter and the last letter to line up and sort of form a straight line this way. It's not going to be perfect, but that's going to help it look a little bit more like it's in line. So the little glyph hanging off of this H here is a little bit taller than the E in Sunshine. So I'm going to try to move and rotate the word a little bit closer to Sunshine so that they do match up. There we go. And now these L's are kind of off in their rotation, so I'm going to rotate this L a little bit so it rotates around the circle better. Now I'm going to make the H and the S in hello and sunshine a little bit bigger than the rest of the text, just so that it sticks out a little bit better. And in fact, a trick to making sure that these are even is to take the height from the one you like, copy it, and then paste it into the height of the other letter to make sure that they are the same. Okay, so first I'm going to save my work. Now to make sure that I like the way that this looks from far away, I'm going to zoom out pretty far so that I can see my hat really small. I want to make sure that I like how it looks. I think the letters pretty much look like they go in a good curve around the circle, so I'm happy with it. So I'm going to select my mock-up of my hat and move it out of the way. Then you're going to select all of your text all together and click weld. Now remember, clicking weld means that other than the next undo, I can't alter my text any further after that. So make sure that you're done playing and moving it around before you weld. Okay, so now I'm going to select this again and I'm going to click this eyeball, which is going to make it disappear because the only thing that I actually want to cut is hello sunshine. So before I go to the make it screen, I always save my work one last time. Then I'm going to select make it. And it's telling me that one of my images is larger than 11.5 inches in height, which is normal for a big project like this. So I'm just going to say, okay. All that means that I need to do is I need to use a 12 by 24 inch mat. So since I'm going to be using glitter HTV, I need to make sure to click the mirror button and then I'm going to click continue.
My machine's going to connect here in just a second. When your screen looks like this with different options, that means that your dial is already set to custom, which is where you want to be. And I'm going to click iron on, glitter iron on. That's the setting that works best with the HTV that I'm using. And I'm going to leave the pressure on default. And now I have to go put my mat in here. And now that my mat is loaded, I'll press the blinking go button on my Cricut and we'll start cutting the glitter HTV. If you're enjoying this video, please be sure to click the thumbs up button and let me know that you like it. After your decal is cut out on the Cricut, you want to trim the excess HTV off of your cut, and then you can set your scissors to the side. Now it's time to weed our decal. The next step is to adhere your decal onto the brim of your hat with heat-resistant tape before we take it over to the heat press. The reason we want to do this before we get over to the press is to make sure that we have it placed where we like and it's not going to move around while we press it. So trim your carrier sheet further if you need to and place your decal wherever you would like it to go on the brim of your hat. Try to make sure the distance from the bottom of the letters is even. You don't want to be too close to where the hat begins to rise for the head part. Okay, that looks good to me, so let's put down some heat-resistant tape. I'm going to add a few extra pieces just for good measure. Okay, let's move over to the heat press. As you probably know, whenever you press Caesar Glitter HTV, you normally press it at 320 degrees for 15 seconds. But the manufacturer of this hat actually says not to go above 245 degrees Fahrenheit of heat on this hat. And I'm guessing that's probably because the hat comes folded up in a package, and when you're ironing it out to iron out the wrinkles, they don't want you to use more than 245 degrees. And I'm going to set my timer to 10 seconds. So normally that's not enough time or enough heat. So I'm going to press it slowly in 10-second increments until I feel the HTV has stuck to the hat. So I'm going to start by tacking my decal down first. So I'm just going to press this initial part down for maybe 5 seconds just to make sure that it sticks. Now I'm going to rotate it and tack down the next part. Okay, so now I'm going to press each side of my decal for 10 seconds. But I want to make sure that my HTV is mostly cool in between. I don't want to heat this hat up too hot and get the temperature too high and burn it. So that's why I'm following the manufacturer's instructions. If you don't have the manufacturer's instructions, I recommend starting at 320 and doing shorter bursts like 5 to 7 seconds. I'm getting right up to the head part of the hat, but I don't want to put that part all the way in the press and squash it down. So my HTV is not adhering very well. So it looks like I'm going to have to use a pressing pillow. So I'm going to put a pressing pillow underneath the seams of my hat to make sure that the surface is elevated and gets great contact with the top of the heat press. So while it's sitting there, I'm just going to hold it with one hand and close the press with the other. Be really careful not to burn yourself. And I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. All right, folks, well, it looks like my HTV doesn't want to adhere, so I'm going to bump up the temperature on my heat press and try again. I bumped up the temperature to my heat press to 275 degrees, which is still a little higher than the manufacturer recommended, but we'll see if this is better for the HTV. I left the timer at 10 seconds. This is why it's important to use heat-resistant tape, because even though the decal didn't adhere like I wanted it to, the heat-resistant tape is still keeping it in place where I want it to stick. Okay, my heat press is heated up to 275 degrees, so I'm going to try pressing my hat again. All right, now it's time to press the other side. Every hat and every HTV is going to be different, so don't be afraid to make adjustments to your temperature or time. The HTV is starting to stick. I'm going to press it a couple more times to adhere it down a little bit better. Sometimes some of this stuff is just trial and error. I'm also pressing in the middle of my decal because I've been rotating it. I want to make sure that the middle gets lots of heat and pressure as well. All right, it's time to try the carrier sheet again. So other than this E on the end, things seem to be sticking pretty well. So these end letters look like they're having the most trouble. So I'm going to put some heat resistant tape directly over this HTV so that it stays in place while I press the ends one more time. I have a Teflon sheet over the platen of my heat press in case any of my HTV actually sticks to the press. It's only going to get stuck to the Teflon sheet and I'm not going to have to clean off my platen. It seems to be really well adhered to the hat. And I just love that galaxy glitter. It has that rainbow finish versus regular black glitter, and I just love it. So this last part of making the hat is totally optional, but I think the ribbon and the pom-poms give the hat a really great finishing touch. I use 5/8 inch black ribbon from Michaels and black pom-poms from Michaels. Wrap the ribbon around the head portion of your hat and overlap the edges by 1.5 to 2 inches. Then mark that spot with your finger and cut the ribbon off at the length that you need. Start by overlapping the ends of the ribbon and gluing those together first. Then periodically go around the hat and adhere the ribbon to random places so that your ribbon and your pom-poms don't get blown off in the beach breeze. Once the ribbon and the glue has set, then you can start adding your pom-poms. Add your first pom-pom over the area where the two edges of the ribbon overlap to hide that spot. Then put pom-poms as much or as little as you like around the edge of the hat. Don't worry about making it perfectly even. And if you can find ribbon that already has pom-poms attached to it, that would make your life a little bit easier also. My Michaels did not have that. Once you're finished adding the pom-poms after the glue has set, you're all done. If you're going on a beach vacation or a honeymoon this year, make sure to tell me in the comments where it is you're taking this hat, and bonus points if you post a picture. If you're not taking a trip this summer, tell me in the comments where you would go with an unlimited budget with your straw sun hat. I hope you had as much fun crafting with me as I did crafting with you to make this DIY straw sun hat. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to subscribe below and ring the bell next to subscribe so that you never miss a new video. Come hang out on my channel because I love to put out really fun tutorial videos at least